Here, San Jose, follow them. Next up, San Jose.
Well, welcome to the December 23rd NMRA-PCR division meetup. Today is obviously the day before Christmas Eve, so Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Hope everything's got all planned out for you and your family. So basically today we have, I needed to update this. We're going to talk about the train show displays and what we did there. And obviously we had the auction already. What I really wanted to first talk about today was the the train show we did in Pleasanton. So 2 weeks ago today there was the Pleasanton train show. It was and by the way, I apologize. I thought I was going to be able to be on this call from the train show, and it turned out it was just impossible between setting up the NMRA booth, finishing some stuff on the ON30 group, and setting up banners on the building for the ACCRS group. I severely underestimated my time commitment that morning, so I apologize for that. So basically, we went to the trade show. We set up. I've actually got a separate picture I didn't put up here. I'll put it up a little bit later. We started on Saturday morning with the booth. Bob Gardine came Saturday morning. He was our Saturday morning volunteer. Basically, we pursued what we've been trying to pursue at these events, identifying model railroaders, and then talking to them about why the NMRA makes sense. So on Saturday morning, Bob actually recruited 10 new Rail Pass members. And through the rest of the show with a whole bunch of Franks, and Frank is here. Frank was there for some of the time. We actually got another 14. So in total, we got 24 new members. Of those 24, 21 were in the coast, 3 were in the Redwood division. So it's very exciting. The reason I bring this up is, we're going to do the same thing in February in San Jose. And it's actually a lot of fun. I mean, I don't think people realize how much fun it can be. You go to one of those things, you spend a couple hours, 3 hours doing NMRA stuff, but then you can walk around the show and see the modular railroads and obviously buy some things. I think probably everybody who came spent more money buying things than they did getting in the door. Frank, any comments on that? You were obviously there. Any thought processes or comments?
Well, I was surprised at how slow Sunday was. It started, but it picked up pretty quickly.
Yep.
One of the members I recruited is from the Redwood, and he's like a 14-year-old kid, which is really good. We need to get some young people.
Yep.
My concern with this whole thing, and I have a RAC meeting in 2 weeks or 3 weeks on the 13th, whatever that is. My concern is we got to find a way to encourage them to join at the end of the term. The last RAC meeting, they said the amount that transfer into full-time membership is like 10%. So we need to have some events, a couple events for these people.
Right.
That's my concern.
So you're absolutely right. So one of the things we're trying to plan is a February event. I have a lead on doing something at Tilden. We'll see if we can bring that to fruition. That you're absolutely right. The other thing that we've talked about, and I'll bring it up here, and one thing that really would help for a lot of people is to have a mentor or someone who would contact them and welcome them and that. So if anyone's interested in doing that, there are 22 there. I can go through them with you with the names, but I think doing that kind of a role, that mentor role, is really important. I mean, I have to say, when I came into the NMRA as a new member, there was virtually no onboard. Well, that's not true. Virtually is not the right word. There was zero onboarding. I mean, no one contacted me. No one talked to me. When I came to the first meeting, everyone just ignored me. And so, I think we need to think about as a group, if we want folks, we need to kind of be more active about it. So if you're interested, send me an email, and I'll give you a name or two and you can contact them and welcome. And, my hope is we could find some folks who would be interested in doing that. So anyway.
Just a comment from one of the guys that you recruited.
All right, Robert. Well, wait. Stop before you make a comment. Welcome, Robert. It's good
Except
to see
that my
you.
name's George. Robert is my brother.
George. Well, hang on. The good news is, where do you go? Where he is? The good news is I can change that.
Is that I got this notice for this meeting, but I've got nothing with a pointer to, for example, a list of email addresses. So you could say send you an email, except I have no idea what your email address is.
You just reply to the email address on the thing you got. It came from the co-superintendent email account.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just reply to that. Exactly.
Cool.
Also, if you go to the PCR, NMRA, too early in the morning, PCR website, you'll see there's a banner that says contact.
Okay. I looked at it quickly. But
if you go there, you can get a hold of all the officers and the people that are in charge of various tasks and stuff. So that's probably the easiest way.
Yeah,
Where do you live?
I live in Lafayette.
Okay.
Or actually, technically in the unincorporated area between Lafayette and Pleasant Hill.
So find somebody to help you out there.
Well, you should also congratulate yourself as an organization, because I am an aggressive non-joiner of things over the years. This is the first thing I've joined in probably 40 years.
Oh, good. Well, that's good to hear. So what do you model, George? Just out of curiosity. That's actually one of the reasons for asking folks to come to this was to kind of see where the interest level was, who else was interested.
I have an N-scale layout, largely due to space constraints. It was built for me by Dan and Armando Vargas. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And it's beautiful. In fact, if you want it, there's actually a YouTube video of it out there.
Yep.
Let's see. I was trying to put a comment out there, but it's amazing. I retired about a month ago, or about a year ago, and I had spent most of the past 15 years in Zoom meetings, and my Zoom skills have gone to hell already. But anyway.
Do you know Andy Schnurr? He lives there in Lafayette.
No. I'm not what you would call a highly social guy. I don't even know the names of my neighbors. I mean, I'm lucky I remember my wife's name and my kids.
Yeah, and I'm in Walnut Creek, so.
Okay. Now, the biggest issue that I've got, I'm enjoying it. I had a significant Lionel layout when I was like 12 or 14 years old that my dad built. He was a big train fan. Is the fact that, at least at N scale, standards don't seem to be well followed. There's not a decent solution to standardizing couplers or standardizing DCC or standardizing a lot of other things, at least in the N scale world.
Your layout, what track was used? Was it Kato or?
Kato, I forget what it's called, the snap together track.
Yeah, that's really reliable. It's the most reliable for N scale.
That's what Dan and Armando told me. Yeah,
we built 2 N scale display layouts that we sometimes bring to events, and we built actually a third one, and the third one was HO, and we used another manufacturer. I'll try not to badmouth somebody. And the switches were terrible. We had to not use the switches. We spiked them in place. But Ducato is really good. In the museum, and at the museum in Sacramento, we built an HO display layout in the Magic of Scale Model Railroading display. And we use Kato HO, and there's been no problem. The only problem we had is when the movers moved it, they kinked the track, and we had to fix that. That was the only problem.
So the track is quite reliable. The switches, maybe 5% of the time, it takes two throws of control to get it to work. Not cheap though. I mean, there's close to $3,000 worth of track in a 4x6 foot layout or something like that. Yeah.
As far as maybe put your email in the chat. I've got a guy who's an expert in N scale, and he's helped me. Maybe I can see if he can contact you for couplers. And the other thing is the wheel sets are really important.
In fact, Dan Armando gave me a magazine of his, which is lying around here somewhere, which has an article about no more derailment of N-scale model railroad, and it's an article called "No More Derailments" or something like that. And it has an incredibly long and detailed discussion of wheels that sort of caused my eyes to glaze over when I first read it. And I'm a mechanical engineer by training, so I sort of understand this stuff. But
okay, so you're probably up to speed.
Well, I haven't gone back and looked at it since then, and the couplers seem to be more of an issue than derailments for me anyway. I've got rolling stock from several different suppliers, and it appears I've got at least 2, maybe 3 different styles of couplers, and clearly there's a problem with couplers just in the sheer size. I mean, I remember from my youth, Lino trains have real knuckle couplers, and they never have a problem, but you can't do that in N scale. They're not big enough, and so forth.
Yeah.
So one person maybe to talk to would be John Cockle. He lives in Berkeley. He's got not a huge, but a reasonably sized N scale layout, but he actually operates. So he's probably had a lot of experience. He's had a lot of experience with, keeping things running and uncoupling and doing those things. So it might be great to have a chance to talk to him. And a good reason to talk to him is if you're interested in having your layout open for the convention. So, because he's the layout chair for the convention. So,
well, no, I'm probably not going to haul this to a convention, but
no, you can have it open at home and have people come by and see it.
Probably not going to do that either, but for various reasons. No, unfortunately, it looks like the only real solution to my problem would be to replace all the various flavors of couplers with one flavor that I settle on, and that's a lot of work.
Yep.
And it's very, it's small stuff, and I got to admit my small motor skills probably aren't quite that good, at least not at this age.
I think that's been. I think that's been one of the kind of ongoing. I won't say it's an issue, but couplers tend to be something that can be non-standard.
Well,
across and HO too, the same.
Yeah, in research, I found at least 2, and probably more like 4 fairly common coupler designs out there, and they don't play nice together.
Yeah. And wheel sets are kind of the same in that there's, while they all have a similar profile in that there's just can be slightly different. So, and of course, metal versus plastic wheel sets is a big difference too. Mm-hmm. So, cool. Well, welcome, and we will hopefully you'll have a chance, since we're looking at the event we're looking at in February will be probably in Tilden, so you'll be nice and close.
Okay.
For that one. So
one alternate plug. If you get a chance, go down to Danville, and in the old station building there, at the end of the year, there's an N-scale model of the San Ramon Valley Railroad.
Okay.
Operated by a local group. And you may want to just drop in If we get your email, I can forward the emails to, or it's on our, actually on um, I think it's somewhere on our website.
Okay.
They're a great group of guys that have been building this model for a while.
It's the Danville, what, the Danville station?
Yeah, the Danville Museum and the Danville Station.
Yeah, Museum of the San Ramon Valley, whatever they call it, but it's the old Danville Station right there on Railroad Avenue.
Funny
Yeah,
thing about that. Yeah, okay. That's not that far.
Cause I gotta go to work.
I'm looking, I had some pictures. I actually stopped by there and talked to everybody. I was trying to find my pictures from that. Hang on.
Museum of the San Ramon Valley.
Yep.
yeah.
Huh.
There it is. Okay. And the N-scale model train is the highest headline in the holidays come in all sizes display there.
Yep. Let me see here.
I think they're gonna do it through the end of the year. But
Yes, that's what it says through just December 30th.
it is not far, and
Thanks to the magic of Google Maps, it's 16 minutes drive.
Yeah, it's not very far at all.
there's a big parking lot right there.
Always useful in this part of the world.
Yeah, and this parking lot didn't seem to be that crowded when I was there. So it was more, it was fairly open.
Well,
Grab
since it
these.
was originally a railroad station, yes, looking at it in the satellite view, it's a huge parking lot.
It was originally a station.
Yeah, I know that, but
Those of us that get real specific, it was a Type 18 Southern Pacific Depot. And there is an N-scale kit to build one if you need it.
Well, that's the interesting story, right? Because one of the builders built built a model of the station, and
Hmm.
then they came and scratch built it, and then they came out with the kit, and
Yeah.
so it was a bit of a gee, I wish waited a little while, right? What I understood.
Yeah.
It would have made
Southern Pacific Historical Society.
okay, maybe I'll wander down there.
just 2 seconds here.
Enjoy it. You'll find it. They're N-scalers. And they'll tell you which coupler to use too.
Yeah, they've
Well,
started to get some real experience in being in running and which engines run well and which engines can last on your show. You learn a lot during a show like that, more than you do in a home layout, quite frankly.
Well, that's why I went to the Pleasanton show and unfortunately didn't come back with a whole lot of information for my other problem, which if you don't mind me taking 5 minutes to explain that, I'll go that.
Sure, go for it.
I bought at least 4 engines from Broadway Limited, and every single one of them has locked up on me. And they've been willing to replace them, and in fact, one of them is about to be replaced for the second time. But is their stuff crap, or am I just unlucky?
I don't know. Anybody have experience with Broadway Limited in Ann?
Not any
This is
experience at all.
The silence is deafening.
Yes, it is. I mean, they look great. When they're running, they run fine. The sound systems are decent, and in fact, I forget which online hobby store I bought it from, but they were giving away a radio receiver that you hook up to a subwoofer, and so you get all kinds of nice low end noises out of them as well. But they seem to have an infant mortality at something between half an hour and 3 hours.
So I know I talked to, I think Brian, he said they had a Broadway Limited they'd been running and it had worked really well. So I think they'd had one at least that was okay, but
Now, part of this is I'm using, because that's what Dan and Armando gave me, a 10-year-old Digitrax DCC controller. It's a DCS50. And one thing, that being the first Digitrax DCC controller, it doesn't have a firmware update capability. And my career was in computer systems and computer networking, and I know that that stuff's never stable. You keep having to do software updates to get it to keep working and so forth. So I'm wondering if that's really part of the problem.
Well, I can talk to you offline about that. It's an issue with many of the products, electronics products that have been made for model railroads, that they really didn't think about things like firmware updates.
Yeah, I mean, in my career, I went through several rounds of NFS software updates, and and the introduction of gigabit Ethernet, for example, and there was hell to pay all along at all those stages. So apparently, the model railroad world.
Yeah.
so here I'll go ahead and share. It took me a second to get it over there. But this is
Yeah.
So this is the layout they've set up. And so it's basically it's a model of the layout that ran down the San Ramon Valley, from the north end down to San Ramon. I think it's in the early 50s kind of thing, transition time. And so they set it up there. I think they're open 6 days a week.
Actually, they're open. According to this, they're open Tuesday to Friday. I'm sorry, you're right. Tuesday through Sunday.
Yep. And by the way, I'm sure they're looking for folks that are N-scalers who want to participate. It's a great way to break out of that social thing to participate in a group like this. But yeah, there's
people, including my parents, have been advising me that for 60 years, and it hasn't worked.
It's not. Model railroading will change everything. So yeah, it's and this is kind of the layout they've put together with their modular setup. So it's worth going up and saying it's then for those who saw it at the convention, they set the layout up at our convention 2 years ago, or year and a half now ago, and they set it up I think it was set up in Concord last year.
It was.
It's kind of interesting to see the progress they made, and the quality of the modeling has really improved pretty dramatically. So as they've gotten more of the models completed. So,
And they're all pretty much experts in the hobby. So a lot you might, any questions you have, probably any of them can answer for you.
Okay.
cool. So Jonathan says he's working this weekend. He's I think doing the Warriors maybe. So Anybody have big holiday plans?
I'm confined to home. Acute, my bursitis went acute. I can't.
I'll be running trains at the Golden State Model Railroad Museum today for our holiday show.
Oh, good. Good.
Just dinner with friends.
Mhm.
My big event this weekend is sanding down the edge of the door of the house my daughter lives in so it doesn't stick so much.
Okay, so I do have one thing I'll go ahead and share that is kind of interesting. So I have after about 5 or 6 years of model railroading, I finally decided that it was time to make the move on the game room we have. We had a pool table, set it up years ago. It's down the lower level of our house. And so I got agreement from the controller that I could go ahead and take the pool table down since nobody used it for 15 years and it was just becoming a storage table. So took it all down, and I have been spending the last 6 months trying to figure out whether I wanted to do modules or do an actual around the room double deck layout in the room. After Pleasanton came home and last weekend got some of my friends to came over and set up some modules. I think I've kind of come to the conclusion that that modules make more sense. So let me show you basically what we did, and it's kind of interesting. Hang on, I got to do this and this. Just got to share the right screen. It's always a challenge to share it when you share screens.
Phil, I'll give you a minor amount of experience on modules. I built my ON3 layout as modules.
Yep.
And once you build it and put it up as a layout, it never leaves the room.
So let me show you what I've kind of decided to do. So this is basically the room. It's there's a bathroom here. This is a fairly large walk-in closet. It's actually a duplicate master on the first level. Our master is actually the reverse floor plan. The main house is on the second level and opens up to the hill in the back of the house. So basically, if you look at this, the green things here at the end are I call them wings. They were basically some things I built to bolt on the modules that could have a staging yard on them. And these other modules here, these are all existing modules that I built. They've all been to shows, go fairly regular. In fact, except for the two big ones here, they were at Pleasanton. So this was kind of a first shot. And what I thought I'd do is I'd set it up to see, how I liked setting it up as modules first. What's interesting is, so this is basically how it's set up right now. What you're seeing on the table there, by the way, because everybody please look at that. That's an engine house I'm building for the O-scale layout in Pleasanton. It's an IHC engine house that, as far as I can tell, is the flimsiest plastic kit ever built. And so you see there's a lot of bracing to try to make it solid. But basically, this is a single 12-foot module, corner, etc. What I realized, though, when I set this up, that what really is different with this structure versus building a layout that's a double deck layout with a peninsula, where basically the only thing in the room other than the layout is a walkway, an aisleway, is I'm able to have, a big open space in the middle and have a table in there and have social. Obviously, I don't have the skirts on the back here. The skirts are in a container down at a shop in San Jose where they stay between shows. We normally do it. And what I've concluded is that it's a lot more fun doing an operating session or something when people can just stay in the room. So what I'm ultimately doing now is pretty much made the decision that I'm going to go ahead and build 2 large in-place modules. And then I'll use these 3 and these 2 fixed modules. And then basically on the end here, build it. This is, by the way, ON30. On the end here, build a turntable that can handle 3 trains. And so the idea is you've got basically a yard, you've got operations through the layout, you know, doing different tasks. And you end up over here at this, which can be used both for staging, but also to turn trains like passenger trains and send them back through the layout. You know, if you the blue numbers, by the way, are essentially switching locations that are at that location on the layout, except for down here is actually more than the 4. And so there's some interesting, you know, it's basically South Coast, Pajaro Valley, South Pacific Coast, in that area. This is actually a model of Moss Landing. This is actually a model of Wilder Ranch here. And so the idea is that there's a beet loader, and over here there's a beet processing plant, which gives you box cars, which need to go over here to the warehouse where they're shipped. So you get a lot of natural kind of traffic out of it. So that's the project for the next probably year at least. So
It actually looks like a good layout.
yeah, it's going to be pretty reasonable.
It's
Yeah,
a lot of fun out.
Yep, so
Phil,
when I
how
have
would you
operating-
get from Phil, how would you get from one layer to the next if you double tracked it? I mean, if you double layered it.
Hang on, let me I have to open another file for that.
You know, scale, I'd almost go with the elevator.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm thinking a train bus.
So hang on, let me throw this up.
No problem. Wait.
So this was kind of, and this is not wasn't completely final, but was pretty close to what I was thinking of doing. So basically, you see the same room. So the idea with doing a double deck layout in the room would be to start at Alameda here.
I'll let you know.
Basically
I'll
go.
I will.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out. There we go. So basically, you know, the way it would go is go around Newark. This is kind of more South Pacific Coast design, but ON30, a little more switching here. Then what it does, this is the lower level. So say at 40 inches, goes into a hill here, comes around. And what I was doing was putting a helix right here. You know, basically by going into the wall, through the walls right here, you can build a helix right in this area. And then that lets it go up to the next level where it comes out at right. So this would be about 60 inches here, 61 inches, a little higher, and then come down to 60 inches for Felton and come around over to Big Trees and Santa Cruz. And then one of the thoughts was they could do some side staging here to be able to bring some trains in from the side. But you can see the problem is that, you know, in terms of the room, there's no place to sit down in the room. It becomes a very closed and dedicated space. So, plus it's a huge amount of work, and it'd be probably 2 to 3 years before I could actually have any trains running. So, unless I hired somebody. Ken, you're muted.
Phil, I'd actually suggest a simpler layout when you get it built.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of the modular is. So the interesting thing with the modular is I'm building basically 2 big chunks of layout, but it'll get done fairly quick. I don't think it'll get done fairly quickly.
Yeah, if you look at Joe Fugate's concept of building pieces of a layout as if they were a module, but actually are really going to be permanent pieces of the layout. I think it's a good idea to do this. You know, you've got modules already built. You can just the link. You can be having fun of running.
Yep. Yeah, and actually, what's interesting is that if you look at the fixed layout, what I actually I got quite a ways down the thought process on this. What I'd actually done was, this is the lower level. What I actually done was gotten to the point of breaking it up. And the thought process with this was to build it as basically modular trays that would sit on a metal support. So in other words, this would be each one of these would be a piece. So this is actually about 10 feet long, 2 feet wide, built as a piece. And then, basically you put on the walls, vertical posts and come out with a, 1x1 steel runner with an angle brace on it, a gusset brace. And you can just put these down on those to do the layout. So essentially they're all modules that they're all, quote unquote modules or pieces that you could take out and reuse. And so I was kind of looking at doing that way. But like I said, I think the idea of the big thing for me was the idea of having some space in the middle. Because one of the things I've noticed when you go to operating sessions is there's often times where people have a lull in what they're doing. And if you leave the room, you're in another room by yourself. It was interesting. I was up at John Zach's layout up in Twainhart. And there was a point at which I wasn't out operating, went out in his crew room and realized, basically you're all by yourself at that point. There's nobody to interact with. So having a table and that in the area seems to me to be kind of nice. And I was actually looking at some other places I've operated that were similar and seeing that seemed to be a nice feature. Anyway, enough said.
Well, just out of curiosity, why ON30 as opposed to straight up HO or whatever?
Because HO sucks. No, I'm sorry.
It's a religious discussion. I'll stop.
No. So actually, I wrote an article for, it's going to be in the NMRA magazine at some point. And it was an argument about how choosing your scale is always a compromise. And so if you think about it, when you define the impact of choosing a scale, there are actually two, and they're actually orthogonally different values. The first is the area you can model, and the second is the detail you can model.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, as you get bigger, you get more detail, but you also get less area. What's interesting is if you map these, and I've got the chart here so I can show you, if you map them on, a typical chart where you put on the bottom Z, I'll do it backwards. So it's for you guys. You put Z over here to G across the bottom, scale size. And then you put on the left axis over here, you put area you can model. And on the right axis, you can put detail you can model. What's really interesting is area is a single exponent square. So that means the curve's not a straight line. When you go from Z to N, the area you can model goes down by 4. When you go N to HO, it goes down by 4. When you go from HO to O, it goes down by 4 approximately. There's a little difference there because HO is not exactly when he's, double O, and so on to G. So when you look at that area you can model, it's a curve like this. The thing about detail that's really interesting is detail is a cube exponent, right? Because detail is about area. It's the volume you can model determines how much detail you can put in it. So that chart, that line, which starts, on the graph on the right, what's the right side looking at you, becomes a triple exponent. In other words, when you go from Z, or you go from G down to O, you actually get a significant reduction, i.e. about 8 times reduction in available detail. When you go
understood. I mean, it's akin to the argument of why Kareem Abdul-Jabbar looks skinny at 240.
Right, exactly, same thing. But so what's interesting is if you look at where those lines come together, S is really kind of in this point where it's kind of almost the Goldilocks scale. What's interesting about ON30 is that the cars and all the pieces are relatively small, the engines and locos. So from a overall size perspective, a physical length of sidings, it's much more akin to HO or S than it is to standard gauge O. So
I did that exercise, which is why I have 2 layouts. What ON30 and one HO. And to put it in a different perspective, which I think you probably would understand, actually, I should wait it this way. You probably would understand. I can't, the ON30, I'm working with something I can see better. And the trains, if you will, stay on the track more because everything's bigger. So that was very important to me because I can't see the stuff anymore as well. But that also works on the HO layout because I can do lots of scenery and get away with tremendous amounts of things because you can't quite see the detail anymore. And as Phil said very adequately, I've got I can do a long run of 20 and 30 cars on my HO layout, whereas if I could get a train of 4 cars or 6 cars on the ON30 layout, that's a big train. So, do you want to operate and run trains? Do you want to, those are the big questions.
Yeah,
At least that's what I found.
yeah, and to my mind, ON30 has the 3 advantages. You got the detail scale of O, so you can do much higher levels of detail. The second advantage of it is that the equipment itself is very inexpensive. Relative to ON3, SN3, because Bachmann built a bunch of engines based on their HO technology and stuff. It actually turns out it's very reasonable. I bought 3 440s with DCC, no sound, for $60 from Train World, and they run amazingly. And then kind of the third thing about ON30 that is kind of interesting, and it's kind of why the group in Texas was called the Texas Outlaws. And there's a group called the Dirty 30 or something. Most narrow gauge railroads were 3 foot, like 95% of them. There were very few 30-inch railroads or other gauges. So by making a decision to do ON30, you're almost making a decision to not be prototypical. And because you made the decision at that level that you can't be prototypical, it kind of lets everything else slide. So it's a very non-rivet counter scale. It's much more kind of build stuff. So that's kind of why I like ON30. Plus, it is, I'm part of an ON. If you've been at the train show, you saw the CCC group that was it was next to the NMRA booth. That's part of the ON30 group I'm part of. And I like the idea of being able to go out to an event like that and have people see models that they normally wouldn't see, that are very highly detailed and done well. I think for the public, it lets them see the other side of our hobby, which you normally only see when you're actually part of something like the NMRA, where you get to go to it's interesting when you go to a convention and you go through and you look at the contest room, you're kind of blown away by the level of modeling that's there. And most people in the public never see the amazing models that people build. Everybody who saw Earl's building with the operating elevator kind of knows what I'm talking about.
I come from a totally different perspective. I'm trying to recreate a historical scene that existed in 1950, and to which I'm really trying to do as much prototype correct equipment, structures, everything is almost in HO scale, as close as I can come to what Port Costa looked like in 1950.
And I think that's one of the beauties of model railroading, is that's a very different approach. I mean, that's what I would call the Jack Burgess approach, right? Which is pick a specific prototype, pick a specific date in history, and model as close as you can that prototype exactly. And
I'm very limited in space. I have like 12 feet.
right within the space that's available. Yeah, Jack did it in a 2-car garage, so.
One of the problems is California, we really don't have basements We unlike the rest of the world country, which seems to have basements. I guess Florida doesn't, but then
Texas doesn't.
Warm places don't have basements, and cold places do. And if you want, I can explain to you the engineering, but it's kind of dull.
I lived in Portland, Spokane. I can understand the cold.
Yeah. Portland, Oregon, not Portland, Maine, which is even colder.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon. But the thing is, houses were built with basements there because the heating systems required a huge area in the night prior to the 1950s. And so you like had to have your coal pile or wood pile or whatever to feed your heater before they piped in gas.
You also wanted to get a foundation down to something that wouldn't freeze so that the house doesn't keep heaving all over the place.
Yeah.
By the way, look it up sometime. Portland got its name by a coin flip.
I don't remember.
It was almost Boston.
I went to grade school and high school there, and I don't ever remember that story.
No, it's the two of the early settlers decided to name it after their hometowns, and they flipped a coin to see which one it was. And Portland, Maine won as opposed to Boston.
That's good. Yeah, what's interesting was in Texas, the thing that impressed me in Texas was there's enough ability to buy a chunk of land, you can build a building. So, most of the layouts in Texas were, a lot of them were actually on outbuildings.
Yeah. No, I grew up in a New York City suburb called Rye, in a house that was built in the late 20s. And yeah, the basement, about a third of it was devoted to laundry machines and a furnace, oil. And another third of it was devoted to a train layout that my father built that was built on 3 doors, and so forth. And the rest of it was miscellaneous storage.
Yep. No, I think having a basement is a luxury.
Yeah. Bob Morris and I once built a layout in San Francisco in his old house on Missouri Street, which had one of these enormous furnaces that had, and all the heat piping and so forth, the ducts going everywhere. And we modeled the the pass and going up from Oak Ridge, Oregon, to the summit, and winding the railroad around the furnace ducts. On various oh well. But that was the last California layout I remember on a basement.
It is a challenge, and it's why people tend to use their garages a lot. If you want to build a big layout, it's kind of the only place.
Used.
So
I live in a condo type thing, so
yeah.
It's
Well,
like
I've got a 2-car garage, but it's full of stuff of both mine and my wife's. Not exactly. No cars, of course. Yeah.
But the only reason we have space in the garage is we have a storage cube to put all the miscellaneous stuff in. And of course, the only reason we're doing that is you're keeping it to give it to your kids, so they have to deal with it. That's the ultimate revenge, is to leave your kids a whole bunch of crap they have to deal with.
No, I'm buying this for the estate sale.
Yeah, it's
anyway. George, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome, George. Good to see you. And
I managed to avoid that by moving to the other side of the country from my parents, so my brother and my sister had to deal with that when my parents passed away.
Yep. No, it's That's good. So yeah, it'll be it should be fun, Georgia. And I would definitely go by and talk to those guys down there in San Ramon or in Danville.
Yep.
And like I said, I'll send an email to you and to John Coughlin and get you guys together because he's kind of plugged into the N scale community.
Sounds
Um,
good.
and you got great mentoring. That's why I sent the email out to everybody saying come here to this. It's not, we don't have a huge get together. It kind of varies on Saturday. If we have a clinic, it's a little bit, we tend to get more folks show up if we do a virtual clinic. But it's a great way to meet people. So, and then you have people on the other end like Joyce, who is a garden railroader. So she only deals with very big things.
I was thinking about that, but both space and money sort of ruled that out. But
Yep.
I would have had to devote most of my deck to the train set. I don't think my wife would let me get away with that.
I love these meetings, Phil, and I really appreciate your holding them. It's such an easy way to get together and see people and not even have to go out of the house. It's really wonderful.
Yep. No, you make connections and stuff. That's always a good way to do it. So,
Thank you for doing it.
well, you're welcome. It's all you guys, not me. So,
Unless we go to show and tell, I'm ready to.
yeah, that's kind of all I had. I'm got to go do some Christmas. I got to go paint that. It's time to go spray that engine house. I just this morning finished the last two pieces on it and ready to spray it. Got to take some pictures of it. I think I have to do something on how do you take an incredibly large structure and add 10 pounds of wood and plastic to reinforce it to make it actually work well.
Yeah.
So
I've been pretty much confined to my workbench with a small disability. So I've been spending my time, actually, if I can get this around this other way, working on this. What you see, the gray piece of
Yep.
plastic is actually a replica of a Southern Pacific 90R-7 tender that I've constructed on the top of a Bachmann 280, which is going to be bashed eventually into a Southern Pacific version of the 280. But this is what I can do with the workbench when that's all I can move.
It looks great.
Sorry to hear that, Ken.
The only reason it's still in gray paint is I'm waiting for some more information, and this is really for rivet counters on the actual rivet patterns that go on the top bunker.
Is this
We have ways of making those rivets these days.
So Ken, you're doing this as part of a group, right? With and 3D printing it.
This is not part of the 3D printing. The
Okay.
that we're doing is the whaleback tender, the 73 SC-1, which is being 3D printed.
Oh, this is different than the 3D printed. Okay.
This one is entirely the top here pieces are all scratched from plastic shapes. Do the camera all the way around here. These, by the way, are vents for the oil bunker. The thing is protruding up. But that's entirely scratched. But that's my part of the hobby. That's what I enjoy, is the actual building of models.
You have to bring that to the convention next year as their locomotive submission.
I hope to have a fully converted SP280 by then, if Owl Mountain gets its act together and gets the valve gear finally made.
Cool. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and suggest that we call it, and we'll see everybody in 2 weeks in the new year. So happy New Year. Have a great New Year. Have a great holiday, and keep your trains on the rails, so to speak.
Happy holidays to everyone.
Greetings.
Happy holidays.
Happy. Enjoy.